what is right-of-way for those who have no clue.
Wow, y'all are the goats. I'm tipping my hat.
We put some miles on our truck and just started roosting.
What are the approaches to trimming this all back? And, how much better are you guys at gardening and dealing with your own trees because of this?
It's like a 100-foot long paintball. I mean, you can joysticks like a video game.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Power for Your Life podcast, where we focus on the value of a cooperative membership and we work on energy efficiency tips for members and why that's important. I've got a brand new co-host. I've got Skylar Easterling. He's like a poster child for the cooperative family. Skylar, tell them a little bit where you're from and how you got to Associated.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join on today, Harrison. I grew up on a farm in mid-Missouri, member of Callaway Electric Cooperative, and did the whole youth tour as a high school kid, and it's come full circle where instead of writing for a contest in the cooperative world, I'm now here writing full-time for Associated Electric Cooperative and serving three-tiered systems. So it's great to join you guys today, and
Awesome.
Looking forward to talking with you.
Welcome aboard. Well, we've got two gentlemen out of Ozark Electric. We've got Matt and Jake, and Matt and Jake are going to tell us a little bit today about right-of-way. Kind of introduce yourself, guys, and let's get this thing going.
Yeah, my name is Matt Caesar. Worked for Ozark Electric for a little over 4 years now in the right-of-way department. Originally from Walnut Shade area down around the White River Electric territory. Moved up here when I started working up here and been in the right-of-way ever since. It's had a great time.
I'm Jake Sal. I'm from Crane, Missouri, small town. I didn't really know anything about the cooperative world, and I actually heard about it from Matt, and that's kind of how I got into it. But I started off my career in the co-op world in dispatch and found myself in the right-of-way. So I've now been in the right-of-way just a little less than a year now, so I'm a little new in the game, but Matt's taught me a lot, so I've got a lot to learn.
And probably have few stories to share, and we've got time to do that today. Now, I will say, if you're not familiar with the cooperative electric utility space, you're certainly probably not going to be familiar with the right-of-way space, right? So the easiest question is, what is right-of-way for those who have no clue? So just your general person out in public, you're at a barbecue, how do you explain right-of-way?
Yeah, usually when people ask what I do for work, I tell them that I'm the guy that cuts their trees down. Our main focus is to just work on the in and around our utility line to keep it clear from vegetation. Trees cause outages. They fall and they tear down line. They provide avenues for animals to get in and on the power line and cause problems. And so our job is just to keep it as clear as possible, so we have an area and space to work in around our power line, and then just try to those outages and those issues and blinking lines and all those things.
And is this maintaining space that's already been cleared? Is it just space that you're just maintaining the current lines, correct? Or is it also, paving new area for future lines?
A majority of it is, existing right away that we've been there in the past year. So it's mostly clear. We're just retrimming or remowing, growth that had happened in the last cycle. In some areas, they've been maybe more unmaintained, so they seem like they're more raw or original to what it was in the the beginning. But most of it's just taking care of our existing right away.
Gotcha. Jake, anything to add?
I always like to say whenever people ask me what I do for a living and stuff. Any given time, people hate us or they love us. They love us whenever the power's out and we got to come in and clear trees out, and they hate us when the power's on and we got to take trees down, kind of thing. But overall, most of the time, people are pretty understanding once we explain our point, where we're coming from. But sometimes we just have to make sure we're clear and understand their side as well as ours.
Sure. So this, being a sports guy, this reminds me of like an umpire, right, or a referee in basketball, because it's like the winning team loves you, the losing team, you blew it, they shouldn't, So yeah, I can see the tightrope that you have to, walk in terms of, especially because when you are, preparing for a winter season, I'm sure you're doing that in the beautiful summer, so they don't always understand it then, right?
Yes, yeah. The truth is, most of the time we're there when it doesn't seem like we need to be there. And once we go through an area and clear it, there's no telling how many outages that it saved, or how many minutes a member was without power because of that work that happened in the summertime. Whether it was a windstorm in the spring, a thunderstorm, tornado, or ice storm, or something like we have around here in the Midwest. So there's no telling how much that helped them in the time. But a lot of times, if we just kind of can go through them and educate them, like Jake said, and just help them understand why it's necessary, usually we can get our work done, and everybody can buy into the value that the right of way provides.
Good to know.
Yeah, how much of it is a play too, guys? I know obviously reliability is first and foremost for the member there in the line, but how much too factors in the expense perspective? I mean, having to go out and replace down lines and clear them out, I mean, how much does that weigh into your decisions too?
Yes, that's a huge factor. Our specific right-of-way program changed drastically after the '07 ice storm. Anybody in Southwest Missouri is familiar with that term, and how much damage there was. I think Ozark Electric had something like 2,000 broken poles, and we have 5,000 miles of power line, and most of it was off in that event. So they realized that a majority of that was due to trees and lack of right of way presence. So after that, that's when they really implemented you can call it aggressive or just a more integrated vegetation management program. It's very more thorough and wide scale as far as getting through the entire system in a cycle that makes sense. So I mean, as far as cost goes, I mean, there's no telling how much money we've saved over the last, for our membership over the last 15 years. Uh, whether it's broken poles, linemen on overtime, fuel. I mean, especially in the last couple of years with the influx of material prices due to the supply chain and stuff. I mean, there's no telling how much, how big of a benefit it is. We can go back and track uh, our membership minutes without power due to tree related outages, and those have gone down. I mean, we're like 20% of what we used to be. So, I mean, we have gone way down in the amount of outages that we have due to the program.
2007 ice storm was the one that I realized, and I'll never change my mind on how much worse ice is than snow. You can have a foot of snow, an inch of ice could be far worse than a foot of snow. And plus it's not as fun for the kids without snow, the ice. That was a very rough storm, and I do remember it vividly. And losing power is tough during those times. So, I know another topic when it comes to right-of-way is easements and helping members understand what an easement is. Can you guys explain what an easement is and kind of why we need those?
Yeah, so an easement, pretty much anywhere that there's power line, there's going to be an easement for that power line. Whether it was a handshake agreement originally with the property owner that whenever they first built the line, and Ozark Electric originated in 1937, so some of these easements are coming up on 100 years old, and they might be kind of vague and stuff, but an easement is basically just a right for us to have access and to use that land. We don't own the land. We just have a granted right of way. So the property owner essentially does own the property. We just have the right to use it and to maintain it, and that's where we just kind of try to spend our time educating the membership on, they do own the property, and we are using it, but it's an agreed upon, easement that property owners granted for us. So that way we could always have access, whether that property wants to change hands. That easement is going to be there until we basically decide that we don't want to have power in there anymore. And it just gives us the right to get there, maintain it, have the power line there. Um, all the things that we do without easements, we don't have a very good, business here because a lot of people don't want us to be there at times. But most people do understand that's necessary and that the line has to be there and that we have to maintain it. So that's just kind of what we spend our time doing a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
just educating them what the easement is and what it looks like and how we utilize those. We have a Missouri state statute that they passed a few years back. And what that is in place of those easements where maybe they were vague on a descriptive width of the easement or maybe it wasn't recorded at the county. A lot of these deals are back in the day. Everybody wanted power, so everyone wanted to say yes to anything. Well, as we've come back through, the property change hands and the membership sometimes is like, well, I don't have an easement on my side. And, we have one, but it's not recorded. So after the ice storm, that's kind of when they passed that too. It's a legislation that just kind of gives cooperatives a right to maintain their existing power line. It gives a definitive length or width of the easement based on the voltage and things like that. So that way, there's no gray area. It makes things black and white for everybody, and that way it just kind of covers kind of a blanket coverage for all co-ops. And it's really been a great deal for the co-op and the membership just to not have to always go back digging up old easements and stuff.
Yeah. For anybody that is mad at us for cutting our 50-foot, that statute allows us to take 30-foot. So we only take 15, so we're not as aggressive as the statute allows us to be.
Hey, that's good to know. That's good for the members
Yeah.
to know that you have even more width there that you're not utilizing. And hey, no dumb questions here, but do all easements always have the member receiving electric power, or is it like you're cutting an easement where they're not actually a Ozark member, electric co-op member? Is that a good question, or is that often?
Yeah. Today, actually, we had to cut some line out that was a member, well, excuse me, not a member. They were on Liberty, and our line runs through their yard, and so we had to explain to them and help them understand that, hey, we still have an easement here, and it's a three-phase, so it's very important for us to
Right.
get that cleaned out where the whole feeder can go out. And but after we were able to explain, and sometimes we've found out, or I have, we let people talk and get their anger out a little bit. Then they can settle down and reason with us a little bit. And most of the time, we always pretty much leave on good terms. We never, me or Matt, either try to leave and the person be mad at us or us be mad at them. It's one of those things you don't want to go to sleep mad at someone, kind of thing. And we kind of have that personality and mentality where we always, shake a hand, even if we're, the last thing they said was a bad name or something. We at least shake their hand on the way out.
They're like politicians a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we have a lot of line on property owners who are not served by us, and that is one of the more difficult conversations to have because, a member, we can kind of help them buy into hey, this is for you, this is for your neighbors, this is for cost savings, reliability, safety, for your co-op members and workers, and a lot of times they find value in that, but whenever they're on a different system, it's more difficult because they don't get to reap the benefit of being a co-op member usually. So,
I have another question tying off of this too, but do you guys find that your problem areas that are typically the most challenging are those repeat problem areas? Is they're just classic areas of high growth, or are you pretty much across your service area having to keep whack-a-mole on all these easement points and right-of-way lines for residences and farms and businesses?
usually, so you're asking trouble with the membership or actually?
No, more with just the growth. There's the tree growth. I was curious if you've usually got your frequent offenders.
Yeah, so some areas naturally are just more susceptible to advanced tree growth. We get in areas of our system that have better soil qualities. Uh, you know, we have some areas down around the lake that are very rocky and hilly, so that whenever we get rain, the water runs off more so than soaks in, and there's just less nutrients, so the trees just don't grow as fast. So we're able to go through there and clear it out, and we might be able to go 7, 8, 10, 12 years before we have to go back through there. Where in other areas, you know, we've trimmed some walnut trees in fertile soil where we've trimmed 15 foot, and after that first spring's growth, they've grown 7 to 8 feet. You know, so we're already down to 7 or 8 foot of clearance on our, you know, on a single phase line. So it's it definitely does vary where it's at. You know, any yard where the membership fertilizes their grass or irrigates their grass, you know, they're irrigating and fertilizing the trees just the same. So we've noticed, you know, in you know, faster growth in those areas. So that's where we try to, you know, be strategic and utilize our TGR program, which is the tree growth regulator. You know, we try to target specifically those areas that are just susceptible to that faster growth.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say, a lot of people get confused on and stuff, that easement, we have 2 poles and then, you know, 3 phase that go out. The arms are 10 foot or so, 8, 10 foot long. But we measure off the center line of the pole, so we don't measure off the outside wire. So it's just 15 foot off that center of the pole. So that's why it's so vital for us to get that, because we only really have, you know, 5 to 6, 7 foot before it hits the outside phase on the 3 phase. So sometimes people don't necessarily understand that we measure off the center line instead of the outside wire.
Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't know that. That's for sure. You learn something new every day. That's one for me. I want to hit you with a question, just putting you on the spot in terms of fast facts. Let's see where you're at. How many miles do you guys have of wires? Do you know?
5,000 miles.
So that, I think members need to recognize. And do you know your meter per mile count?
Probably around. I mean, I can do some quick math.
Yeah, we'll give you time to do that. Everyone, we're just hanging out, chatting about this, but I figure to know that 5,000 miles of coverage. I mean, I've got a 5-acre yard, and I struggle to keep that maintained. So that's a totally different world when you're talking 5,000 miles. And so you're looking at 15 feet wide, over 5,000 miles of that.
Yes, yeah. I just did the math. It looks like we're probably around that 6 to 7 meters per mile.
Okay.
So being a rural electric, we're, you know, a lot smaller. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, so like we're doing 15 feet on either side for us is our program. So we're looking at 30 feet total.
Oh, right.
And we're
Yep.
covering, you know, 5,000 miles. We're trying to keep that all on a cycle where we can get around to the next round of trees before they're growing back into line causing issues. So
Yeah.
it's a game plan. You know, we just try to make the best of it, and different years have different weather. You know, we might have a really wet spring and summer that, like I was talking about earlier, might just accelerate that tree growth and puts the game plan kind of out of the window because what we thought was going to happen doesn't happen. You know, things change, so we have to constantly adapt and just kind of continue to work on it just to do the best that we can with what we got.
Mm-hmm.
When we do have some subdivisions and going through there, I just thought of this off the top of my head. It's kind of like fighting Rocky. You know, you get one house cut out, and 30 foot later, you take another punch because you got to go talk to the next member, and then you cut out another 30 foot, and then you go to those. The subdivisions can be a tricky and fun thing.
And you got to do those in the same day. You got to just go from one to the next and just keep on getting back up. And I mean, it's tough, but I think that the more that the members know the reason why we're doing this is to educate the reason why this is so important. Because if you look at it from a your house only standpoint, you know, come on, you're taking away a beautiful tree or trimming down a, you know, part of it. But when you look at it, I mean, when you talk about right of way, what's the overall objective, the reason for doing this, or the reason why it's so important?
We have a few reasons. I would rank them as, so we always say it's for safety, reliability, and just to be the most cost effective for the member. We want to save money for them, but essentially safety is our number one concern, whether that is for a child. You know, a tree that grows into the power line can become energized under the right conditions. So we don't want that to ever be a threat to animals or pets or friends or family or anything, or membership or pedestrians or anything like that. A lot of our safety, you know, stuff that comes up at work, any kind of reports or accident reports or anything like that. Most of them involve something with trees, whether it's working around trees or dead limbs falling and causing injury, or not being able to see something because of the brush and things like that. So we're trying to mitigate as many of those issues as we can. So safety is our number one concern. If we can have a full easement cleaned out and we have a broken pole, that just allows our linemen to set up their truck in the optimal position where they can work off the back of the truck where it's the safest, where they can see well, where they can not be in traffic or things like that. So like all these things are taken into consideration whenever it comes to the right of way. It's not just simply to keep the power on or try to save money. Those are big deals for us too. But safety is probably our number one concern.
It's definitely a service. I mean, I know people are passionate about their trees, but you're right. The more we can do to educate and let folks know that really it comes from a place of caring and community and making daily life possible, then and you add all that up, losing a tree limb here and there or a whole tree isn't that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We have a lot of people when we go and tell them we need to get that 15 foot or so, there may be a tree that's 2 foot outside or out away from the line, growing in it, burning. You can see the burn marks, and they're like, well, can we just trim it? Well, no, because we have a 10 foot minimum approach distance by law, so they can't do that unless you're a certified arborist with electrical training. And a lot of people want to be able to do that, but we don't want to allow that. And as far as we have certain trucks, if there's a tree outside the easement, that could potentially say it's a 60-foot tall tree and it's 18, 20 foot outside the easement, it could still fall and hit that line. If it's close and threatening the line, we want to be there and we give them a service to help them take it down. We do have a lot of stuff. We got a couple of trucks that's all they do is help members out as far as trees that are threatening the line that's outside the easement that our contractors don't necessarily take care of it in the easement.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that's what I want to get into a little bit now is kind of getting into what are the approaches to trimming this all back, and how much better are you guys at gardening and dealing with your own trees because of this? Are you guys arborists yourself due to this? Would you say self-claimed? Can you go up to a tree and know what kind immediately and how fast it's going to grow?
Yeah, working in the industry for the last 4 years has definitely given us a lot of opportunity to work on tree ID and to learn facts about how different trees grow and what they're capable of. And I've learned a lot about like certain trees. Like I'm never planting this tree in my yard. It just drops sweet gums and walnuts and different things that just leave all kinds of debris. And then some trees that are just super fast growing. A lot of people like a fast growing tree because they can plant it and in 5 years they have this big beautiful tree. Well, typically the faster growing tree is not going to be as strong or as stout as your oaks or your other hardwoods that grow a little slower, like a hickory tree and stuff that just that take their time. They really bind together and they grow and they're strong. They take longer to grow, but they're going to be a stouter tree. So we have learned a lot. We're always out there trying to educate the membership on things, and it helps to know, hey, this sycamore tree, this thing grows really fast. If we don't trim 15 foot, we're going to be back out here next year, or even sooner. And like Jake was saying, we want to get our maximum clearance. That way we can make one trip out there, get the work done, and knowing about those trees and knowing some facts and characteristics about them really helps us out as far as that goes. Now, as far as gardening goes, I'm going to leave that up to my mother-in-law. She's definitely the professional gardener. I'm more of a grass and tree guy, but as far as gardening, she is definitely the king of the garden.
What about Jake over here?
As far as knowing trees, it's one of those memories that you just stick in your mind that you don't know why it did. But a guy asked my dad one time, he said, I bet you $100 you don't know what kind of tree it is. It was a stem, 8 inches long. And my dad said, catalpa tree. I'm like, what the heck is a alpha tree. I'd never even heard of it before. And so from then on, I'd always like be driving by. I'd be like, Dad, what's that? And he'd be like, the white oak, the dogwood, the redbud, stuff like that. So I kind of had some familiarity with it. But in the last year of being in here, I've learned a lot. I have an app on my phone. If there's sometimes when it's like dead season and leaves aren't growing out and everything, a lot of trees look the same. Like there's different barks and stuff like that. But without the leaves, it's hard to tell certain trees apart. So I have an app on my phone if I get in a bind, and I've used it a lot. And every once in a while, I have someone try to tell me that it's not a certain tree when I'm 99.7% sure it is, but I still bring the app out just to confirm with me.
They'll believe the app. They won't believe you.
Have you used an app like that?
I've got one.
It's great.
I'm going to tell you.
Sometimes I'll scan it when no one's looking, and then I'll come back and be like, oh, yeah, knew all about that one. But, that is a nice...
Yeah, I definitely do it.
Mine's picture.
No, I was just going to say it's a nice, the ability to do that and learn about the tree that fast, or to also solve a bet, it sounds like would have been a nice addition for a little sprouting of a tree. But, I like hearing how much better like the slower trees are, the hickories and the walnuts and the oaks and stuff, because those are what I make my baseball bats out of. So that's for good reason too. They're strong, you know.
Gotta have. I mean, I know I've got a kind of a personal question here. It's been burning, and I gotta ask it here.
Go for it. Do it.
Permission. On our family farm in mid-Missouri, we've got a bunch of ash trees, and they're big, beautiful ash trees. But you know where I'm going with this? We have that emerald ash borer beetle that's invasive, that's tearing across the state. It has not hit our little farm oasis yet, but I know it's coming. How much are you seeing things like the ash borer make an impact on your data? You automatically circle an ash tree for extermination, or I know you guys are dealing with a lot of variables, but I was just kind of curious on what you're seeing, at least with Ozark Electric.
Yeah, actually, we just sent out a notice this week to all of our workers at Ozark Electric, specifically the linemen, just to kind of educate a little bit on the ash tree, because, like you said, it's moving across Missouri, and it is a lot of the ash trees. It's 100% fatal. And as far as I know, there's nothing you can do to stop it, and once it's there, it's too late. And the trees die; they become very brittle. They're dangerous to work around. They're dangerous to even be around. A lot of other utilities and tree companies have banned climbers from climbing them. They will not let somebody climb the tree because they're just so brittle and just dangerous to be in. So they have to do strictly bucket work or some sort of large machinery. But yeah, we've had it's hit our system. It's not everywhere. I've been seeing a few ash trees here and there, but the areas that are bad, I mean, they're dead.
And you guys
they're everywhere.
You aren't exactly making it hopeful here. Huh?
Is there a barrier? There's not a.
We are very good at being straight to the point and honest. And we usually don't beat around.
I appreciate y'all cutting it to me straight. We'll have to.
That works the best, but it does think that I love ash trees. That's where I find most of my morel mushrooms around are ash
Speaking
trees.
my language,
I am terrified to know what's going to happen in the next few years. Where are they going to be still there? Still, I don't know. Are they going to make a comeback? The tree health update with the conservation department a few months ago, and they pretty much kind of gave us the warning that once they're gone, they're probably not going to reestablish like they have. I don't know. That's sad to hear. I like ash trees. They make great firewood. They're a good growing tree, but that's just part of life.
Right. You can't change it. You guys are real good at being, adaptable. You mentioned you've got a lot of challenges out there. This is just another one you got to deal with, and you play your cards as they're dealt.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
I went through and had a member call me one of those things where some trees were outside the easement, and it's along this beautiful creek and everything, but I marked 12 ash trees to come down, and we're all dying. And like Matt said, you got to be super careful because they shed, and if you're just a civilian walking under them, they can shed a branch and knock you on the head, do some damage to you. So you just have to be super careful. where you're at all times with them.
So tell us, what are the main tools you guys are using to clear right of ways, easements? So I know you're not just, is it all tree trimmers? I know I've seen, my son likes when he sees and we drive by and we see a giraffe with the extendable arm. I mean, I need a couple of those. Tell us about some of the tools you guys are using.
Yeah, so down the line, if we can get them in there, drafts are very efficient for us. They can cover a lot of ground. We'll go through and mow a lot of the brush up with, skid steers, mulching heads, hydro axes. And if we have like an area where it's in a yard or something like that, we don't want to send those big machines in because they got 4 or 5 inch tread on them. Those things are monsters. They can go up and down mountains, through creeks and rivers. I mean, you can take them anywhere. So we'll use bucket trucks like that. They can reach 60, 70 foot in the air, and anything higher than that they can rope off and stuff like that. But one we haven't used in a while, but you can use dozers, to remove that, which is a great way to clear right away, especially new right away. But those are the main sources of.
Now, maybe explain a giraffe to those, and hopefully maybe we can get some footage of it. But explain what a giraffe is for those who have no clue what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so there's lots of different kinds. They have small ones, big ones, but it's this big, long arm they have singular saws, and some of them have double saws, and they're just running 90 miles an hour, just going like crazy. And they move just a little bit, and you just hit the branch, and I mean, you're on it for 2 seconds, and it can take off and move side to side, and you have with that.
It's like 100-foot long chainsaw.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, you can reach. It's operated from a cat machine, and joysticks like a video game. You can operate this 100-foot arm and extend it and out, saw branches off the trees, and you can cover a lot of ground in a hurry.
I'd like to do a day in a life with one of those.
Yeah, the guy's sitting in like a lazy boy all day long. Just, lean back in the chair and looking at the sky.
At one point in my career, I did storm restoration footage via helicopter, and I did fly in what they use for right of way, where they dangled the blades down from a helicopter, and it was that old school glass dome helicopter. And I will say that before going in that, I would call my wife and tell her I love her, and because I was like,
what a way to go out, though.
But they weren't utilizing that. It was just if I ever had jump in that helicopter. But to know that they do clear using that might be for some larger transmission lines. But you got to do what you got to do to clear these lines. What kind of tech are you guys utilizing? Is there anything that technology has improved in the last decade aside from just the app to win a bet? Is there anything that you guys are doing to utilize drones or anything to help check out and see how to clear?
Yeah, in the recent years, they've we aren't actually participating in it. We're actually doing some demos in the upcoming weeks to kind of see if it's something that we can fit into our system. But they have drone or satellite imagery that can do a survey of your system and kind of give you an idea on the areas that have minimum or within the minimum approach, or trouble areas that are maybe harder to just set eyes on, because of their proximity to the whatever kind of land we have. We have some areas that we down around the lake where we run miles through the wilderness and crosses the lake, and it's not easy just to go out there and take a walk every few months to see how things are looking. So there's definitely some new technology out there. We're still kind of just doing it the old school way, just running through, trying to stay on our cycle and do things mechanically. But there's all kinds of new technology coming out there. They've got drones that can do herbicide treatments and TGR treatments via drone. I know, like what you were saying with the helicopters and stuff, with the trimmers and stuff. That's not something that we utilize here because our terrain allows us to do mostly with equipment. But I know out west in the mountains and stuff, that's something they utilize a lot, just because of the you can't take a giraffe up on the side of a mountain or a bluff, so they can run a helicopter over it while they're trimming that way. But yeah, there is all kinds of new technology coming out.
Well, I know you mentioned herbicides. Like how effective is that, and what kind of time does that give you versus just going in and clearing area? Or are you clearing an area then, using something to give yourself some more time? And what have you found to work the best? Because I'm interested.
Yeah. So typically, what we do is we go through, we break it up into two areas. We have our mechanical, which is our tree trimming, the giraffes, the bucket truck, and we have the herbicide. Usually, what we do is we go through a substation. We'll clear out the entire substation with the mechanical. We'll get everything clear. They'll mow everything, chip all the brush, all of the. That's what you see with the wide open, 30-foot wide right of way. And then usually we follow that up a couple years later with an herbicide treatment, and we use a company, and they bring in guys that are certified, trained herbicide applicators, and they actually backpack and spray select. It's very low volume. They just target some very specific things, so they're not just broadcasting across the right of way. They're actually physically walking through the right of way, targeting a cedar tree, targeting an oak sprout that's sprouted up. So these sprouts are just maybe a foot to 2 foot tall. So they'll terminate those with their herbicide, and then that essentially it's kind of creating a savanna area, more of a grassland area. Our system's improved because of the years of doing this. You know, it just makes it safer and faster for our linemen to find outages. Whenever you can pull up and see 5 or 6 fans down a tap to somebody's transformer, and you can just see it. You're like, okay, that spot's good. They can go to the next spot. In the old days, they'd have to get out, walk it, and in a lot of cases, take a chainsaw with them and cut their way in and cut their way out just to find out if they can, if the line's on the ground. So, I mean, it's been a huge benefit to us. It's very cost effective. We'll spray around 1,100 miles a year, and we'll do that in about 5 to 10 days. And I mean, they will just absolutely cover a lot of ground. They'll bring in 40 or 50 guys, and they'll just walk miles. And
I thought the mail carrier got a lot of steps in, but that seems like if you enjoy walking, if you want to get your pedometer on, you can do some herbicide treatment, right? And get wow, yeah, I can't imagine that.
Well, these guys are both in shape, so I maybe just need to spend a few weekends with you guys instead of my
get out of the office
and go with them.
Hey, we'll give you a way of the right-of-way world.
I mean, herbicide is definitely more up my alley to start, probably, and then work my way up to the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
We got a
That's
backpack
perfect.
for
I don't know. I could go for that lazy boy inside of a giraffe.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I'm pretty good at video games, so I think I could do that. So
exactly.
Tell us, what are some crazy scenarios or stories that you guys always seem to be running into? Like, what is it with right of way? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
I'll go ahead and start with this one. One that sticks in my mind. It was probably my 3rd or 4th week at the co-op. And I was working with the guy that retired that I ultimately replaced. And we had pulled up on a yard. The lineman had found it. And there was a tree that had a tree house in the tree. And it was one of those ones we hadn't got there yet. It was on the schedule to be done in this area. And this tree and the tree house was very close proximity to the line. And after looking at it, there was a window that, without a doubt, was close enough that a kid probably could have reached out and touched the line. It was so close. So we removed that tree immediately. So that's kind of one of those crazier things. I haven't come across anything that bad yet. Since we're getting really close on everything being very clear. But that's one of those ones like, I want to make sure that we're not, leaving anywhere that somebody can really get hurt or killed. So that's kind of what gets me out of the bed in the morning, is knowing that there might still be something like that out there. 5,000 miles is hard for everybody to lay it on the line. We talk about tree trimming. The right of way does involve some other things. Whether it's fences or tree houses or sheds or whatever. So we're constantly turning in places that have something that might be within an area that it really just isn't a safe place to be. So that's kind of our job, is just to try to be out there making sure that it's a safe place for the community and our membership and our
Yeah.
workers to be.
I would say one of my favorite things about the right of way is some of our contractors that we have. Like, you meet a lot of different
I bet.
characters. I mean, we got some guys, down south, and they got the most Hicks accent. I was telling Matt, I called him the other day. I was like, "Hey, did you get that big maple tree?" "Oh yeah, we got that daggone thing down, 9 o'clock this morning." And then we got one guy, he's just crazy. He takes cold showers in the morning or something. He's just amped up all the time. And we had a tree on the line uh, early this week, actually. And I mean, we had to go down this big hill and up this hill. We were down on the lake. And I mean, he was the first one down, the first one. He's like, "All right, boys, this is what we're going to do." He starts cutting, and then, I mean, just there's no way to get a truck to it or anything. And he was able to safely take the tree off the line without a bucket truck. He's very efficient with what he does. And it's those guys, it's awesome to see. Those
Dedicated
guys.
to it. Yeah, he doesn't need CrossFit in the morning. He's got that natural energy. That's awesome. Yeah. But it's awesome to hear, though, that what you're doing, especially, even both examples, that, that you take safety so seriously. And I know that you probably run into some, more dangerous, risky, situations due to tree trimming. So I know it's not the safest job. And so the thing here that's nice is that members can hear, what you guys are willing to do to keep people safe. The treehouse thing, I'm sure they hate to see the treehouse go. But, you're also potentially saving a life there, or, from that situation. And I think it's good for members to hear those examples.
Yeah. I will say, whenever we've had our co-op come through right away and trim things back, I will give them credit. There's never been a tree that I've questioned. I mean, I might hate to see it go, but you hope that people can, look at it through your lens and the community's lens and realize, it was time. So I get it.
Yeah, we try to always have a respect for the property owner and what value they hold the tree at. And, we never know. We've come across situations where we've had to remove a tree that was maybe a memorial tree, or a kid planted it from an Arbor Day sapling, and they threw it in the yard thinking that it's going to die next week. Well, here it is, a 30-year-old pine tree, so we come across those special circumstances. It's a hard conversation. Usually we try to help them out a little bit if we can offer a tree voucher or something, just to allow them to go to some local nurseries that participate with us, and they can purchase a tree to, plant outside the right of way. So we try to work with them as best we can. But we do, at the end of the day, we have to do what's best for the co-op and the membership.
Is there any heads up that members could receive? And you all are obviously with Ozark Electric, but other cooperatives that are listening, about when this schedule takes place? Because I'll be driving, on my way to work, and then see the crews a few miles away, seeing that it's like working. Is there something, or is there a resource they can utilize? Do you want people calling the co-op to find out the schedule, or is there any those tools that they can use?
Yeah, so every co-op will do things a little bit differently. Ultimately, the truth is we have a right to be there at any time. We try our best to communicate with our membership, and we try to send out letters notifying specific areas of work that's going to be taking place. As we get closer, we'll try to send out emails and phone calls just to notify them, hey, we're coming. This is what we're doing. That's what I've been working on this week, is we sent out our letters to the areas that we're going to use our herbicide treatment. That's not actually happening until June or July, but we're going ahead and getting that notification out there. If anybody has questions, we'll answer them. We're going to send them, we'll re-notify some other way with an email or phone call, closer to. We have a website, ozarkelectric.com, and you can get on there and click on the right of way tab. We try to keep most of our projects, our bigger projects on there, what contractors performing the work, our target start dates, target completion dates, things like that, what areas that's going to be taking place. So we try to use that. And then, of course, Facebook and social media, we try to put stuff out that way too, just to kind of try to hit all realms of notification and do our best to notify. There are times that it doesn't make sense to try to notify, whether it's the middle of the night or an emergency situation or whatever. So we try to notify as best we can, but
Gotcha.
just kind of do what's reasonable.
Yeah, and so just note to our members, contact, go to your electric cooperative's website to see if they have any more information about that, and know that your cooperative is doing everything they can to keep that tree or to do the right thing to keep your power on. And new thing I learned about, which was tree vouchers. So whenever a situation does arise, if possible, there could be a way to put another tree back in the ground to help out with that. So, Skylar, you got anything else for him?
No, man, I'm trying to think. I mean, you gave me some. I had a question too about you run into bees, you run into wild animals. I mean, you have anything on that side? I'm sure you have, but yeah, I gotta ask. I just picture a coon jumping out at you guys being up in some big tree,
or a bear.
I mean, that's in their service area.
I've got a hornet's nest hanging in my office. That's a common one we come across. Bees and hollow trees. I don't know how many times we've seen a hollow log hit the ground and a squirrel come flying out of it or something. And nothing comes to mind of like an actual,
that's for the best
attack or anything like that. But we'll definitely come across some, crazier things. The funniest thing probably like you would never think this is goats. The guys getting out in the field or something where there's these suckers headbutting them and stuff like that.
There's some irony in that because those goats are helping with vegetation too. But I don't know. I mean, you got to be able to take the horns too, I guess, every once in a while. That's right.
So I think what you're saying is if you needed a mascot, the goat would be your mascot then, huh? Is that should we stamp that?
That's probably a top one for the goats.
Yeah.
So clarify this for me. When people see the right-of-way work being taken place, it's not always going to be your local electric co-op's vehicles, right? So you guys are having contract workers mentioned. What should they know to look out for? And when are you all going to be there with Ozark? Because I'm always wondering, like, should they be, because they have rights to that land. How do we know it's official and make sure that it's in our best interest?
Yeah, on all of our contractors, equipment and vehicles they have magnets that go on the vehicle or the machine that says our co-op's name and it says that they're a contractor, so that they know us. And our specific co-op, and I think a lot of co-ops mostly do this, but they normally contact the member before going and cutting so that they're, not in the blind and we don't go up and just start cutting down trees, we may send out a letter 2 months in advance, but then also we have guys that will go in, a week in advance, and let them know, hey, this is what we're doing. And one thing about it with the member, when the guys are cutting, it's best to stay clear of that, because their branches are falling 70 foot out of the air, and you can't always control that. You get a gust of wind, and we have brush hoggers and mulchers coming behind them. And so if you're coming through, just get through quickly and safely. I mean, you don't want to stay around because it can be a piece of wood that, flies 60 foot. They do a really good job of containing it and keeping it away, but it's just like anything, you can't control every single circumstance.
And now, is there any, can you say a season or time of year that's like, that you should be on the lookout, or is it, you never know with 5,000 miles probably, but is there your busiest month or anything?
Yeah, we cut brush every day from January to December. And, they're going to do as much as they can every week. Rarely are we just so far ahead of the game that we're going to be lax and take our time on something. So usually we're trying to get as much done as we can. The summer months are our busiest time. Just the days are longer. It's drier. We can typically get in some of those more trouble areas that are typically wet. That's one thing that restricts us a lot is just the weather, wet conditions and things like that. You can't get a truck in a yard if it can sink to the axles. Even the heavy equipment, stuff like that, as big as it is, it'll still not operate too well in super wet conditions. So, the summertime, we're really moving. That's where you'll see us a lot. But
Good to know.
we've got
Yep,
touch all
it's a
year, so.
24, 365.
Yeah, and
nonstop.
to add some context, I did look while y'all were talking on the 5,000 miles, and yeah, West Coast to East Coast in the U.S. is just about 3,000 miles for context. So these guys are,
Wow.
y'all are the goats. I'm tipping my hat because that's a lot of work.
We put
Yeah.
the miles on our truck, that's for sure. There's any given time we can drive from one side of our system to the other in the same day, and it's just crazy how much road we and line that we see. Get into those.
Yeah.
problem
Well, that's good to
spots.
know. Wow. More miles than across coast to coast, huh?
The more you know.
Hey, well, now that we know that the right-of-way goats, what they do, and why it's important, I've learned a lot today. There's a lot of lessons learned, but I will say that, keep this in mind with your local electric cooperative. Keep in mind that all of them do things differently. There's probably, differences in their policies and how they cover each one of them throughout our service territory. But this is taking place all throughout the service territory for several good reasons, and we are appreciative for the work that you do to keep our power on, because that is also one of our priorities here at Associated Electric, is to provide power to our members, and we can't do that without the hard work that you guys are doing. So we just want to thank Matt and Jake for joining us today and discussing right-of-way. And once again, just keep this in mind whenever you see them out there, and maybe go thank them for the hard work that they're doing. And as always, thank you for joining us on the Power for Your Life podcast. And we are so thankful to have you guys. Thanks for being on today.